Welcome back to the Unwanted Fraternity podcast. I'm Jen Tonkinson, and I'm here again with my husband, Greg Tonkinson. And as always, we are so grateful that you're joining us today on our podcast. And we have some exciting news. We shared this a little bit on a few of our other podcasts, I think the last couple episodes, but we have been asked to partner with the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. And that is just something that's so exciting to us. And Greg, tell us a little bit about what they offer on that podcast network.
Yeah, if you love what we're doing here, both with Unwanted Fraternity and our sister podcast, Meliora the podcast, then you absolutely want to check out Herzog Foundation Podcast Network, because there's about a dozen other podcasts that are going to help you get the resources you need as a parent, as a homeschool teacher, as a Christian educator, as an administrator, to help the next generation become culture changers for Christ.
And as well, these shows are inspiring and they are geared to strengthen the Christian community. So if you head on over to herzogfoundation.com/podcast, you can explore all the podcasts that they have to offer, and always just join us on this journey of helping kids grow closer to Christ, helping people go through grief. Our sister podcast, Meliora the podcast, as Greg mentioned, is one that we try to do to bring kids closer to Christ. So just join us in that journey as you go on their website and look at what they have.
So good. And we're all in this together. And so, like, this is not, hey, who's got the most, views, or like, spread it out. Find what matters to you, and then just join the community of discussion. Jump in. So today on Unwanted Fraternity, we are discussing, I don't know how to frame it, Jen, but basically we're just going to talk about the week, if that makes sense. What do we mean by that, Jen?
So we are talking about the week that is March 6th. And I say it's a week because as we look at the days leading up to March 6th, there's this feeling of it's coming. And then when March 6th is here, it's here. And that creates its own set of feelings. And then there's the feelings after March 6th and the season that you get into after that. So, I feel it is best for you to talk about what March 6th means. I know that you've mentioned it on previous websites, but it's just, let's just jump back into what is March 6th to you?
Yeah, so March 6th, 2010, my wife was coming home from, she's a nurse at Phoenix Children's Hospital, been there for 12 years, I believe. And she was on her way home. It was a Saturday night, just waiting to come home to her husband of 12 years and the kids, 10, 6, and 4, 2 boys and a girl. And she didn't make it home. And so she was 2 miles away from our house, was hit from behind from a 20-year-old male who was driving in about 30 plus miles per hour over the speed limit. And no brakes, hit her from behind, and was killed at the scene. Mm-hmm. So,
when I hear, every time I hear this story, it hits me anew each time. And for those of you who are just joining us and maybe haven't gone back to the past podcast, we were married 2 to 3 years after that, and when I think the original hearing of the story, it was like I had witnessed it for the first time, whereas you had walked through it, 2 years earlier. It was really difficult to sit in because now I loved you, and I liked you, and I loved you, and I really loved your kids, and to think about them going through that. It was just hard. It was hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
So I was thinking this morning, it's been 15 years.
Yep.
And I wonder, is it different, or how has it changed this day? How has that changed in your mind? Because 2 years out, it feels a certain way. 5 years
Yeah.
out, they actually say 7 years out, you start to feel normal again.
Right. Right.
Now you're 15 years out, double
Right.
that
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. I sent the kids a text today. So 3 kids now, they are 25, 21, and 19. And sent them a text this morning, or I think my middle child sent us all a text. Somehow we all got on the same group text. And it was a 15 years. Like it's been a lot that's happened in these 15 years. We've had a marriage, we've had a grandchild, we've had dating and colleges and breakups and I mean all kinds of things. Like it's been great, but also it's been 15 years, and every March 6th we're 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 reminded of that. And so my 21-year-old, I think, formed this group text and just said it's been 15 years. Honestly, I think it's more of about I mention to my kids, and maybe in the book, I can't remember, but I mention that yes, there's a community. The Unwanted Fraternity is a community that we want you to be a part of that, not because you want to be a part of it, but because of your circumstances. And once your circumstance happens, then you are a part of it. And so we want you to acknowledge that sooner than later, because it seems to work better if you acknowledge that you're a part of the fraternity sooner. That way we can link arms, walk through this together. But there's also a part of the reality of your situation that other people can't be involved with. So in my case, for me and Jen will today or in next episode talk about her story. And they're two different stories. And Jen's ex-husband abandoned her and her boys. My wife was killed in a car accident. Like, those are two radically different stories. And so for me to bring all 7 of us together and say, hey, Jen, you and your boys need to empathize with me and my kids. And then for me to bring my kids together and say, hey, me and my kids need to empathize with you and your boys. That's nice. That's being gracious, but that's not reality. The reality is on March 6, 2010, there were 4 people in the room that got the knock on the door, and you weren't one of them. And so I think there needs to be some space when you go through your pain and suffering to rally around those that were there in the moment, in the day, in the evening, whatever, and just to acknowledge I was there. One of our good friends, one of your really good friends, texted me today and just sent me a text and said, like, 15 years, it feels like 5, sometimes it feels like 30 other days. I miss Leanne, like my first wife, and so she and I had this kind of connection through this text of, yeah, you get it because you were there. Like, you were there in the house after the news went out with me. Why would we deny that? And so I would just say that there needs to be a little bit of a moment when you get to year 15 or whether it's year 10 or, but just that day, whatever that day is for you, we call it Leanne's heaven anniversary. That March 6th is the day that Leanne went to heaven. And so she's 15 years into her anniversary of heaven. And in some ways we celebrate that, but there's also, the obvious of tears and sadness. And I was talking to her mom yesterday, and I just said, hey, what's tomorrow? And she just teared up and just admitted it's going to be a really, really hard day. And, we hugged and because she was there, I mean, obviously. And so I would just, I guess, start with that get around the people that were there with you the day it happened, and just acknowledge that it's been a year, it's been 5 years, for us, it's been 15 years. How are you doing? And so that's what we've been spending today doing.
On a question to piggyback off that.
Sure.
So we have had a very busy week. One of the on a different episode, we'll talk about just the chaos of living in a busy life,
Yeah.
teaching and all that.
Well,
So,
that's why I'm thankful we're at Tonks Pub,
yes.
because the drinks are good, and it's helpful.
So we came up on this week. You had so many obligations at work, and we went to bed late. And then on March 6th, you wake up and your eyes open. And we have two different experiences in that moment, laying next to each other in bed, two different experiences.
Yeah.
What happens in your head? I'm so curious of that, because I asked you that. I'm like, what is in your head right now? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, and I would say I think that's a great place for anyone who's in a similar situation. And it doesn't have to be widowed, or, it can be any situation where you are now connected to someone that you weren't there. You don't get it. I would just say a couple things. And one is, don't try to get it. Like, don't pretend, or don't say things like, I get it. Like, I understand. If you don't understand, you don't understand. And that's fine. It's a little off-putting when, even in a time of being genuine, you say, I get it. When you don't, like, and that's fine. But the second thing is, ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going through your head right now? Like, what does this day look like for you? I would even say probably over talk about it. Like, talk about it excessively, to where that person has to say, thank you so much for asking. I'm good. Got a busy day ahead. Whatever it is. The worst thing you can do is to not acknowledge it, to forget, or to chalk it up to, man, come on, it's been 15 years. Like, come on, seriously. The nonverbals, just that feeling that person would get of, you have no idea, and clearly you've moved on. And I kind of get the feeling like you're expecting me to move on. Like, that's, please, like, don't do that. Sacrifice on the day that matters to that individual, in a way that, even if you have to, I don't want to say perform, but really just kind of stretch yourself with, I'm having a great day. Like, today, I got my agenda, and truth be told, like, I'm like, this isn't part of my day in terms of the depth of pain, the depth of grief, the depth, like, I just can't get there, and I'm not going to try to manufacture it. So what can I do? Here's what you can do. Ask a lot of questions. Text every hour. On, when you get home for dinner, like, make it about them. Make this day about them, to where they say, love it. Thank you. Like, seriously, but it's a bit much. Like, if you get those words, you did it well, honestly, because the other side of that is, nobody asked how I was doing today. Nobody sent a text today. No, and here's the rhythm of that is, when it first happens, those first 6 months or a year or whatever, everyone's engaged, right? Everyone wants to know. That's why I wrote the book, and that's why I started the podcast, and that's why, because everyone was asking, like, everyone wanted to know what's going on, what's happening, So I started a blog and all of that, because I couldn't contain how many people wanted to know, how are you feeling? And then all of a sudden, it just takes this dip down into, wow, it's been 6 months and haven't heard that too lately. You get to year one, it peaks back, it upticks again.
Because it's the
Because it's
anniversary.
year one,
Yeah.
right? Everyone wants to know, oh, how are you doing? It's year
Yeah.
one, 365 days. But year two, and then moving forward, it just kind of goes back down into, really, it's been, oh, I didn't know it was 6 years. Oh, I didn't know it was 10 years. The day you have marked in your calendar, and that could be getting bad health news, that could be the day you lost everything financially. That could be the day you lost a loved one. That could be the day your spouse walked out on you. You know that day. And listen, the goal isn't to promote that day like you guys need to know that that was the day. I think for most of us, we're just hoping, praying. That someone like would empathize with me. That someone would be like, hey, it's a busy day. We're all busy. It's 2025. Like, it's not 2010 again. I just want you to know I haven't forgotten about you. Something like that.
You said in the morning, I think it's a place of being tempted to go into that space again and be and be there, and then choosing not to for the sake of getting through the day, which I thought was really profound. Like, that makes sense. And I think that can apply to anyone receiving bad news, going through the divorce. I can definitely go through in my head and say, I remember that the moment of everything, I can sit there and it feels heavy. I can remember that. But I think that was really profound that you said that. I think, so on the flip side of that, being the person, because I think that this would be a good segue into like, okay, well, if they are married and you do have someone who is going through grief and continuing to experiencing things, what is the other person doing during that day? And so just to give a glimpse of that, it feels like I'm looking in a store window and I'm watching people do their life.
Right.
And I don't know if this is the time I'm going to pass that store window where people are on the floor crying, or if this is the window I'm going to pass and people are, having a great time, having good conversation, laughing about memories.
Yeah.
And so it is a day I wake up and I think, 15, well, it's not 15 years for me, but it would be
Close.
12-ish. Yeah. What do I say today? Who do I talk to today?
Yeah.
Because there are times when I've reached out to, I felt like I don't want to make someone sad. So I don't know if I should reach out.
Yeah.
I've reached out to Andra, and she's said, I've had some really fun memories today.
Yeah.
And then there are other times I've reached out, and it's like, no, this has been a really hard day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, really good thoughts. Jen is taking this from a perspective of like what I take when she talks about ex-husband and abandonment, and I can't relate. Like, I just have nothing to give in terms of empathy. I get you. I don't. So here we are with, no, this is, and I would say even in many of our cases, there wasn't a particular day. There wasn't a particular moment. It was just over the course of time. So it gets a little blurry, but with loss of life, there is a particular day, right? There is a day you put on the headstone that is a date. And so I think that is a little nuanced with what I'm going through. it's not a time, it's not a week, it's not, there's a day where we drive to that day, and then that day shows up on your calendar, and it's like, oh yeah. And I would say that for many people, myself included, there is a moment of, I'm like, almost a feeling of guilt, like, oh, that day kind of snuck up on me, and here it is. Should I feel bad that I didn't give it enough credence, with like, I didn't focus on it as much as I did? I would say today was different just because it's the 15th year, and so there's something about that for me. It was just like super reflective on 15 years. Like that's a decade and a half of what has happened since. So again, I would just say, if you're in Jen's situation where you're the supporter, and that could be a sibling, that could be, a child, that could be a parent, that could be, but you're not directly involved. Be involved. Ask questions. Ask so many questions. Give that person the feeling that this is your day. And it's the antithesis of like a birthday. Like, birthdays were like, this is your day, we're going to buy you things. Grieving on a day where you've lost a loved one is the opposite of that. This is your day. This is a sad day. This is a day of reflection. This is a day of crying. This is a day where you're going to go to a cemetery. Like, this is a day that is morose. I want you to know, I know this day. I know that I'm not going to go to the cemetery. I may have a great day today, but I know you're probably not going to have a great day today. At the very least, you're going to have mixed emotions today. You're going to have some good times, but probably there's going to be moments of just reflection and probably tears. And I mean, I had my sunglasses on today, and yeah, tears were coming down through the sunglasses. And I'm in the car by myself, but I'm thinking, I'm so glad I got my sunglasses on right now, because when's the last time I cried? So as a supporter, I would just, welcome to the pub.
There are dogs here.
Ambiance at the pub. I would just recommend, make this day about that person and not anything else. Like, again, get to the point where that person says, you're so good at caring about me, but I'm good. Like, have them verbally admit, I'm good. Like, if you don't get that, you're guessing they're good. And that's a dangerous place. You assure yourself they're good.
Have you, so I have two questions. Do you feel sometimes I know you said too much, but I have received, like, I think it's overwhelming sometimes, the reception of are you okay? At least I perceive that. Is that ever something that you have, like, where you're like, I can't manage this today? Because there are days where you're like, please, like you're saying, I want to receive, I want someone to see. I want someone to acknowledge.
Right.
But then are there ever times when you're like, I can't process someone acknowledging this right now?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we need to be the captain of our ship by way of, there is no right or wrong here. So some people are designed where they just need to take the day to process. They need to take the day to just sit in a coffee shop and just reflect. And maybe that's scrolling through a photo album, or maybe that's journaling, or, but they just need the day. It's cathartic for them to be alone. Others, no, they need to be around people to go through the emotional roller coaster of I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm laughing, and so they need that. So I think you just need to read the room and know the audience, like who am I dealing with here? So like for Jen and myself, Jen is, I don't know, 7, 8 years younger than I am.
Do you not know? You just said, I don't know, 7 or 8. I just want everyone to hear Greg does know my age.
I'm guessing it is
Greg.
48.
Oh my, yes.
Is that right?
I am.
Look at that.
I'll be 49 very soon.
That was close. And so, and I don't say that for any other reason than I'm older and a little bit more, just like, okay, this is life. Like, this is like this is a part of life. And so in my situation, ideal situation on March 6th every year is check in 2 or 3 times a day throughout the day with I love you, I'm praying I'm praying for you, I care about you. So to your question, it's a difficult question to answer, the open-ended question of how are you doing? How are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And so I would probably work against that. I would advocate for tell me what you're doing. Tell me that you're thinking about me. Tell me that you're praying for me. Tell me that you care. Tell me that your thoughts are with me, whatever. And that could be friend to friend. That could be sibling to sibling. That can be, so again, back to like my kids. So my 21-year-old texted everyone, hey, it's been 15 years, and then we just started in with the remembering but none of us asked, how are you feeling? Like none of us went to that. We just went to here's how I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking. And I would say, however you need to do it, give that person that declaration that you're with them. I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm like I love you. I mean, just dote on them. I'm with you. And the reason I say that is because sometimes there's a lot of pressure to answer the question, how are you feeling?
That's true.
We don't realize that, but there's a feeling of like, tell me how you're feeling. And then we have to decide, how am I feeling right now?
Well, and how much information you want to give someone. Like, how uncomfortable do I want to make this person right now? Because it's
right,
truthfully,
right. Because then it's like, I don't know how you're feeling right now, so I'm gonna drag you down into despair, and you may not want that. Like, and again, our culture prides ourselves on asking that question, how are you feeling? But we don't know if you really care about how I'm feeling, right? And so we just like, how's your day today? Well, we don't know if you really care about how my day did. So I would say on this particular day, don't do that, but rather demonstrate through your words that you care about that person. Mm-hmm. I'm praying for you. I care about you. I love you. God hears you. You're going to get through, whatever it is. And to me, that would be like, thank you. Like all that says is you're in my corner. You're my cheerleader today. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So,
as we kind of wrap this up,
yeah.
How do you get out of the day? So tomorrow, or if it's whatever day, the next day, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It doesn't not. This is going to double negative. I almost said a double. It still exists.
Right. It doesn't not exist. It does exist.
The day exists still. Yes.
Right.
So how do you wake up and brush yourself off and do life, knowing that you just had a really rough day the day before.
Yeah.
I that's a big shift emotionally.
Yeah.
Every single year, big shift emotionally. How do you get out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not, it's not you get out of it. It's you get up and say, it's March 7th. It's not March 6th. And I think it's honestly similar to a birthday. Oh my gosh, I turned 50 today. And then there's that moment of like the next day, it's like, oh, like I'm still 50 and not much has changed, right? And so, yeah, so don't put a bunch of weight into that day other than that's the day. But also keep in tandem, in tension, I guess. No, in tandem, tomorrow's coming, and when March 7th hits, it's March 7th, not March 6th. And embrace that. Like, it's a new day. Because I'm reading some Psalms here, and I love what David says in Psalm 71, verse 14. He says, "As for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more." And I take that as kind of a mantra, like, and he says in verse 15, "My mouth will tell of your righteous deeds, of your saving act." And so like, he says in verse 17, "Since my youth, God, you have taught me." And then he says in verse 18, "Even when I'm old and gray, like, don't forsake me, Lord." Like, David kind of goes through the spectrum of a life. And what I like about that is, man, your spectrum of a life stops at that day. And you need to stop at that day. So March 6th for me will always be the day where something tragic happened, like game changing happened, like life changing happened. Why would you deny that? Why would you like pass that up? Because it comes every year. Why would you like just sleep through that day and say, well, I'm glad I got through that day? No, embrace the day. That is the day that changed your life. But don't stop there. Like, recognize the next day is coming. And what David says here is, I will always have hope. If we can't, if you don't get that part, then yes, your next few days, your next week are lived in despair. Your next few weeks are lived in depression, in woe is me, is I can never get out of this. And what I learned 15 years into this is the world doesn't stop turning. Like, you've got to get up the next day. You've got to produce the next day. You've got to get up and say, that was a day of remembrance. Now today's a new day. Like that's, and so the Bible is so full of encouragement of trust in the Lord today. Today's a new day. God, give me my daily bread today, right? It's all about, okay, yesterday was sad. It was, worth grieving over, worth remembering, but today's a new day. So let's embrace the new day. God has me here for a reason. So yeah, so I take today as a day. I take today as I want to use today in self-reflection, in talking to my kids, and crying, and going to the cemetery, all of that. But tomorrow's a new day. And tomorrow I'm going to get up and say, God, you have me here. It's March 7th. What do you have for me today? And it's not that I dismiss March 6th, but I certainly don't dwell on it to where it brings me down into this, mire and muck, and so that's kind of how I deal with it.
That's very well said. Thank you for sharing all that. I like that you said, always have hope, that God's word is our foundation for that. And so, as we end our podcast today, have hope in the Lord. He is your strength and your foundation. In Isaiah, he says he will give you wings like eagles. Just pour into him when you are feeling despair, and all the time, because he is good. Thank you for joining us today on One Fraternity, and we will see you next time. Take care.